Again, thank you, everyone. I just want to say, Board of Education members, Madam Superintendent, and our guests in the audience, as well as those who are on our Zoom for this evening. Today, we want to talk to you about our SLIFE students, which stands for Students with Limited or Interrupted Formal Education. These are our students who are new to the country and come and enroll in our schools in the district. They're considered our port of entry students. Over the years, we have not had a program to address the needs of this particular population. For years, we've talked about as a district on creating something from K through 12, but with the overwhelming amount of students who are enrolling into our school system from outside the country has caused us to accelerate and come up with something to address this need. So, next slide. What we have seen an increase in our bilingual population during the months of August 2021 and September 2021. There's limited space at Hubbard, Maxon, and Plainfield High School. Maxon and Hubbard had to find alternative ways to house some of their classes because all of their classrooms are full. Our bilingual students who are new to the country may need additional support prior to attending our schools full time, which is the purpose of a port of entry program. Next slide. So SLIFE, I told you, it stood for Students with Limited or Interrupted Formal Education. SLIFE are English language learners who have experienced interrupted education due to war, civil unrest, migration, or other factors, who have never had the opportunity to participate in any type of schooling before entering school in the United States, meaning wherever they came from, Guatemala, Venezuela, wherever, Haiti, when they were back home in their country, they were not in school for an extended amount of time, and in some cases may have never attended school at all formally. Next slide. For the month of September 2021, just to give you an idea of what we're dealing with, we had 253 new students, 47 at Hubbard, 53 at Maxon. Actually, take 100 off, there's 153 new students. Presently, as we speak to you tonight, there's another 400 students that we're registering now. If you look at on the CNI agenda tonight, you'll see our numbers from June to now. But if you add the additional 400 we have to process over the course of the next week and a half, you're going to see it far exceeds what we've had previously. Limited space at PHS in both middle schools. So we need a standalone SLIFE and port of entry program. As many districts similar to us, Elizabeth, Perth Amboy, they have these programs already. Next slide. Of those numbers I shared with you, the number of new entrants eligible for SLIFE or our new port of entry program is Hubbard has 37, Maxon has 32, and the high school has 107 students. And right now, the high school currently has 180 students that have to still be registered. All of these students are new to the American school system, again, meaning they came from out of the country, never went to school in the United States at all. June 1st of each school year is the date set by the NJDOE on students who are considered new entrants to a U.S. school system for accountability. And then I just wrote a little note down there, as I shared with you, enrollment is still ongoing. Next slide. Why the port of entry program? A port of entry program is a one-year program that will provide newly arrived English language learners, or L students, the opportunity to transition into our school system here in the United States. So we don't just take them, put them in a class here at the high school, and try and provide some support, which we've done in the past. To do it properly, we want to take these students, put them in the port of entry program, work with them for a year, where the focus on the program would be for the students to be taught in their native language, transition to a new school setting, and also receive ESL instruction on a daily basis to assist with English language acquisition. After a year, those students will transition into the high school program. Also, the students that come in, let's say we get a 19-year-old, clearly, typically they age out if they don't have any credits. But having this port of entry program, we could put together a program that can help them get out and get a high school diploma over the course of 2-year period through having them participate in trimesters so they can earn their credits a lot sooner. Because as we know, that piece of paper here in this country is going to go a long way with giving you opportunities to be able to be successful in life. So if we have students motivated to do it, we want to have a pathway in which we can support them to do that. And then the last piece, the district has been discussing the creation of a port of entry program in the district that will be implemented over the course of a 5-year period. We don't want to just have the port of entry program for grades 6 through 12, because clearly we have younger children that come and never went to have formal education in their prior country, or limited or interrupted. So our plan is to eventually phase the elementary school program in across the district as well. Next slide. The goals. Provide students new to the United States school system with a year's support to transition and adapt to content standards, English language acquisition, and just the procedures of going to school on a day-to-day basis. We want to also provide students with a safe space to adjust to the attendance norms, social, emotional needs, and possible layers of trauma associated with being in a new country and the school system. Increase the likelihood of students who would typically age out of the United States school system the opportunity to complete high school and earn a high school diploma. And lastly, establish a strong home to school connection through events that we would sponsor through our Title I, Title III, and Title III immigrant funds. Our plan, next slide. For our middle school students, our program model will be 10-week cycles. After each cycle, students will be reevaluated and new objectives will be set. The purpose of that is, middle school students don't earn credits. So, we're not worried about you aging out or anything like that. The purpose of the middle school program is to get them acclimated as quickly as possible so that they can move into our regular middle school program. We want to provide those students with partial day of immersion into the middle school setting with the focus of transitioning students into a full day of immersion within 1 academic year. We want to also assess the students' academic level to ensure students are placed in the appropriate age and grade level cohort. Sometimes, we have students that come that do go to school in their country. They can finish 8th grade and they're only 12 years old. But here, as you know, when you finish 8th grade, you're 13 going on 14 years old, somewhere between June and January and October of that school year. Students will begin their day at 8:40 at Berkman and bus to their home middle school for lunch, their elective, and PE. You'll see a sample schedule in 2 slides. Next slide. The high school. The high school is a full-year program including credit recovery on a trimester schedule. The purpose of the full-year, full-day program, it will provide students with a full day of academic courses and the ability to earn credits in additional core content areas. We'll be able to ensure that each student has a tailored graduation pathway prior to aging out of our school system. And after 1 year, return to the home school on a path towards graduation for those students who are appropriately aged, like our 14 and 15-year-olds. Next slide. The next slide is just a sample schedule. We put, as you can see on the middle school schedule, it stops on here. It says period 6. They would get on a bus. It'll take them to their home school, whether it's, more than likely to be the Hubbard or Maxon because they have the bilingual classes. So it'll be Hubbard or Maxon. They'll go and spend the last hour and a half, 2 hours of the day there. The high school, as you can see, when you look at the high school schedule, it's all day. Next slide. Now I want to talk about budget. How are we going to pay for this? So obviously last year as part of our budget, we put in, one of the things we budgeted for is an alternative school or alternative program. So some of the things we looked at to staff the school, we have existing staff that will be transferred to the school, which will be at Berkman. It will be 2 SLIFE teachers that we currently have. We have 1 SLA, a math, a science, a social studies, and ESL teacher that would not have an effect with the rest of the schedule in that particular building because these are the teachers that actually teach these students now. New positions we would need is a custodian, a security officer, PE health, some elective, maybe art, because you don't need a lot of language to do that. Social worker / guidance counselor, a secretary, a vice principal, and 2 teacher assistants. The reason why we would use a vice principal as opposed to a principal, because this would be the extension of Plainfield High School. This would not be its own school. It is not meant to be, because remember, with the exception of those overage students, everyone else will be transitioning into the main campus from anywhere from 10 weeks through or a full school year. And if you look to the right, it talks about what's already in the, some of this is already in the building. Some things we'll have to purchase. So chairs and desks, office furniture, computers, as you know, we're 1-to-1, so we have iPads already. So it's just lists of different things that we would have to purchase to get ready to open. Why the Berkman location? Well, it has 9 large classrooms that can hold up to 270 students. We have a large common area with adjacent kitchen. We have male and female bathrooms on each floor. There's 3 offices with space for meeting and small group sessions. We already have access points, phone system, security system, a large open space for physical activity. And, you know, if we keep growing at the rate that we are, and there's a need for additional space, there's plenty of space outside if we have to look at things like a trailer. And that's one of the things Dr. Mitchell touched upon when talking to the state and seeing what kind of resources they can help us up with. There's plenty of parking. Go 2 slides. Well, no, you can go to the next. Did I fix? No, 2 slides. One more. Yeah, that got, you know. So what happens to the alternative school that we talked about just a few months ago? Clearly, with this new need, this is more pressing. Our plan is to, for those students that still need to recover credits, those students who are eligible to graduate June 2022, this current school year, we'll still give them, you know, what was known as the Twilight Program and give them opportunities after school to recover those credits. And then we're looking at opening an alternative school, because as you know, our new Charles and Anna Booker Elementary School opens next school year, which will allow us to look at other spaces to open an alternative school for the 22-23 school year. The difference between an alternative school, because some people are thinking, well, I thought what you're talking about now is alternative. The alternative school is for all students, regardless of what your circumstances are. That's designed, you know, as parents sometimes, and we know our children, and I have an option. I don't want them in the high school. I worked at South Brunswick High School before, coming at 2,500 students. I know my baby needs something much smaller, so I'm gonna put them in a smaller school. Alternative schools are supposed to be like Burger King. Everybody have it their way. The comprehensive high school just don't work for those types of students. So that's the difference between that and what we're doing for our port of entry students, our SLIFE students, with this plan. At this point, you can go back a slide, and because you know, I found that and I thought it was cute. I'll take any questions.
Castro, you have the floor.
Thank you for this presentation. I was told they weren't able to hear me online, so I'll try to speak a little louder and into the mic. So this is a real concern, and I actually brought this up back in April 8th, 2021, because that's when I was watching the news and I did see that an influx of people were coming to the border. First, did we put any thought of it back then, or are we reacting to what's currently happening? But most importantly, are we gonna model this program after how Elizabeth is doing it? I have a lot of questions. I don't know if I should just shoot. I have like 5. Should I shoot them out, wait for an answer, or how should we do this?
So I'm gonna say the same thing, right? You have every opportunity to ask your question. If you can't, please be open to receiving it in the email.
Yep, that's fine. If you can't answer it now, I'll take it in an email. So my first question is, I saw that we're going to teach kids in their native language. We do know that not all students coming here speak Spanish. Do we have resources that speak those specific languages to teach those students?
So we know that one of the things recently over the past 4 or 5 years that has increased is the language Quiche. So, as it stands right now, there are not a lot of opportunities to find folks to teach in Quiche. I would have to look at our data to see what the languages of these particular students. A lot of those students will probably get a lot of additional ESL support. But to go to your first statement / question, we didn't see, when we were going into August, we were concerned because the enrollment was going down. So this just started happening in August and September. The high school cleared out their queue in a matter of a week, and a week, 2 weeks, and registered over 180 students. They're back up to 189 already. So as quick as we registering them, they're coming right in. So we do remember you bringing up that concern, but I don't know what the delay is. If you watch the news, is for different folks. Sometimes it could take 3 months to get here. So this is recent.
Thank you for that, Mr. Williams. And I do like that there's a strong focus on teaching them the English language, which I think is really important, is to get them speaking English. And right now we have 253 students that are currently counted for on this presentation, but I do expect those numbers to keep increasing.
Right.
I feel that the staff that we currently have on the presentation is a little understaffed. Are we gonna budget to have more social workers or more people?
So, obviously with our first foray into creating a program, if there is a need, we'll definitely hire additional staff. You have to remember, even though it's 253, you got to break them up into groups. Teachers teach a certain amount of classes. So right now, with what we have, we're good. But the biggest concern that I have is the additional support staff, guidance counselors, social workers. So you're correct. So we're looking at that too.
And
I can answer that. Ms. Castro, remember when the presentation started and I said I had contacted the governor's office?
yes.
I have a presentation with them in 2 weeks on what's happening here in Plainfield for additional resources. Because, like you said, we see the news, but until they actually get here, that's when they become, a part of our role.
Thank you, Dr. Mitchell. And lastly, so I'm trying to understand, will all students in the SLIFE program start from Berkman and then go into their main campus, no
Yes,
matter what grade or what age?
Well, from 6th grade through 12th grade.
Okay.
We don't have anything for kindergarten through 5th grade yet. That would be next.
Okay.
So yes, they would start at Berkman. High school age students will be in there for a full year. Give them all the English language acquisition, instruction, and support. So that way, when we transition them to the high school, they have a higher likelihood for success. We're not just throwing them in with 1,800 students. The middle school, however, we do 10-week cycles. So at the end of 10 weeks, we'll reevaluate. If we think they're all right to fully transition, we will. Those will be your students that did have some education. Maybe it wasn't interrupted, but we want to give them a little support before putting them in there.
Gotcha. And I had one more. I'm sorry. I promise this is it. How will students be assessed for placement?
Well, they usually take a ESL, the bilingual department comes in and give them an assessment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Powell, you have the floor.
Solange.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got you.
Well, I have two things here for now. And thank you, Jocelyn, a lot of answers. However, we had a bilingual academy. What happened to that?
Are you talking about what was over at the high school?
Right, the
It's
bilingual
still-
academy was supposed to address everything you stated. So what happened? Because a lot of the students that did come in
Right,
at higher age, 18, 16, whatever, that they had to work in order to provide for their family. So then that's when they had the Twilight Program within the Bilingual Academy, if I'm correct. So what happens when these students are 19 years old and they have to work in order to, they're undocumented, more than
Right.
likely.
right.
So now they have to work in order to provide for their family. I did not hear anything about that, like I did hear when Belandi spoke about the Bilingual Academy. It spoke about all of those issues that the students that came here undocumented, most of them undocumented, and how they address those situations. So what happened to the Bilingual Academy?
So I don't know what the premise of the Bilingual Academy was here. My understanding, it was just all bilingual students. I didn't know if it was specific programs within the academy, so I have to get back to you on that. When it comes to those students that may have to work and can't come during, remember, they came to register. So when they come to register, they come in with the idea you gotta go during the day. Once we get those students registered and identified, there's different things that we can do to work with those students, but I can't do that until I see who these students are. Like, I couldn't tell you right now how many of those students are 18 or 19 years old. But if that need is there are certain things that we can do, because we are going to have the Twilight Program. It will be trimesters. We do have other resources where they can earn credit. The key is if they're motivated to do it, we can build a plan around it.
So then, therefore, the Bilingual Academy has been demolished?
No, it's still there.
Okay.
But that's where all the bilingual students attend classes. Those where all the teachers are that teach the classes in Spanish, but they don't do any of this, what we're talking about now.
Well,
Like, they can't help that 19-year-old student who's trying to, who got to work during the day. It's a regular comprehensive high school over there, but that's where the bilingual students are housed. They do have some classes over here, but they have their own lunchroom over there, I think their own gym. But what we're talking to you about today, that's not.
Well, I think you need to look more into what the Bilingual Academy was about, the Twilight Program, before we start up an entirely new department, area. The other thing is we're doing this without a strategic plan that, here we have, I think it didn't just start that we had a great number of Latinos, and different, I don't know what the correct phrase to use these days, coming into this country and coming into the school district. So we did not have a strategic plan to find out how we're going to work this. And now we're given this, even though we knew about the bilingual and the Twilight Program, which I was working. I don't know what happened where it's not working. So this influx of Hispanics and Latinos and so forth coming in is not something new. It's been ongoing. The school district, if you did not know when you went inside of a school, you would swear that it's just Latinos or Hispanics, but that's obviously not the case. So I think that we're doing this without a strategic plan and not looking into what happened with the bilingual or Twilight Program. Thank you.
I can respond.
Mr. Williams.
So it's a little bit more complex than that. So our Hispanic population has been increasing at a phenomenal rate for the last 11 years. When I got to Stillman back in 2009, it was 50-50, 50% Hispanic, 50% African-American. By the time I got to 2018, it was 90% Hispanic and 10% African-American. As a matter of fact, we're dealing with situations, we don't have enough African-American students to have general education classes at Stillman, and parents get upset. when it comes to looking at Hispanic students, you have those that were born here, went to preschool, went to regular school, so they're with the general population. But then we have what you call English language learners. Those are more than likely 90% of the time are the students that weren't born here. Those are the students that we're talking about. I can look at what the planning was when they put together the bilingual program. Unfortunately, I was at the elementary school, but I don't think that is what happened or what was executed. But we have always discussed having a port of entry program. And even when I was at Stillman, we were at the stage where we're talking about what we can do for K-5 for those students, because clearly they come in new to the country as well. So why it didn't happen, I can't speak to that. The difference is the increase in the amount of students who are registering for our school district who are English language learners, which is why this need is so dire right now, because you got to remember that third bullet, also a lack of space. So Berkman is perfect, is pretty much already set, and it can be ready in time for it to house the program. And I think it would be a value add to the district.
Mr. Wyatt had a question.
I'll make my questions and comments brief. First, thank you for the presentation. You did a phenomenal job. Secondly, as Ms. Powell stated, we did have the Bilingual Academy, but this really does address the point of entry program. We needed this probably 10 years ago. Like you said, we've started seeing that influx. However, my question is, one, simultaneously, the alternative school, because I see year after year, we kind of put that off. And each year when we graduate students, I feel as though we are losing that demographics right there. So I know that, you know, budget-wise and those things, we have to look at, but I would like to see us work at that simultaneously. Second, it's nine teachers. I think that's adequate for 250 students.
Look at mine. You counted the new positions along with the existing?
The existing staff that will be transferred. So I'm just counting the teachers. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 2 TAs.
It definitely should be, but as I stated, when the first question was asked, we would definitely increase the amount of staff if necessary.
Okay. All right, and like we all know that this is a huge issue that we have here, and it impacts our school system. So to see it finally be addressed is great, because Dr. Mitchell, chair, students, the point of entry students that come over, they still have to take the standardized test at the end of the year.
Yeah, but they take the act.
Yes, they do.
They do. Okay, so I think that anytime we talk about the Plainfield Public School District, that story needs to be in the narrative as well, because a lot of times we talk negative about our school system, and this is a big issue that we kind of just look over. But it's good to see the administration finally addressing this. The presentation seems great. Hopefully this program has merit and works, not like programs in the past. And so hopefully, like you say, you're talking to the governor, we need a lot of funds, and we really need to look at the root cause. Why is just Plainfield have the large increase in numbers? So that's something else that needs to be addressed.
It's Plainfield, Newark, Trenton, Orange, New Brunswick. It's targeted districts, because North Plainfield, South Plainfield, Piscataway, they're not experiencing this at all.
Ms. Berkman, I did see Ms. Hembry's hand has been up online. Ms. Hembry, you have the floor.
The bilingual program was established for the entry students. Also is what happens to students who do not speak Spanish. I'm talking about the Haitian students do not speak Spanish. And we've had a number of students from African nations. The language is, those students really have service in the bilingual program. So what are we going to do about those students?
So she was breaking up a little. Did she say specifically students like Haitian students? So, you know, I have Dr. Gordon here, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but as a district, until we have 20 or more of a particular population or those who speak a particular language, those students get ESL support. 20 in each school.
But
Ms. Henry, you had a follow-up question?
the problem is, those students, yes, not 20, but those students are still not practicing because no one speaks our language.
Ms. Henry, we couldn't make out what you said. Can you say it again for us, please?
Those students are not serious because no one speaks their language. The bilingual program is a Spanish-speaking program, not for other languages.
Ms. I don't think it was a question. I think she's making a statement. I mean, again, we're having a little bit of difficulty hearing you, Ms. Embry. If it was a question, if you type it into the chat directly to me, I'd be happy to read it out.
Yeah.
Ms. Bergman has a phone, sorry.
Just for Ms. Hembry, I think if she had the headphones, we would be able to hear a lot clearly.
I think a noble suggestion. If again, we're having a little bit of difficult time hearing you, Ms. Embry. Perhaps somebody in IT can get her some headphones that might be, like you said, useful to her. Mrs. Bergman, you have the floor.
So, you said that you're assessing the middle school kids in the 10-week program.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
How are you assessing the high school students? Is it a similar or is it something different?
Is very similar because with the high school students, with those trimester courses, we're trying to get them to recover as many credits as possible. So everyone will be evaluated very similar to when we do have an alternative school. Usually those students are credit deficient. So we're putting individualized plans for each student. So they're always constantly, and depending on once the school, we get the staff, they'll set everything up. But when I ran my alternative school from my former district, we met weekly to look at students, their progress, and to see what needs to happen next.
Okay. So previously it was stated that the Twilight program was not working. There were some issues with it. So have those issues been addressed, adjusted? So we're talking about using that as part of the process for this, right? So am I not looking at this the right way?
But we didn't say it wasn't working. We just wanted more options for our students.
I just have.
Go ahead, Ms. Bergman.
So have we looked at this program in any of the other districts that use it, just to kind of just?
Yes, I'm gonna bring one of my collaborators up here, Dr. Gorin. I know she spoke to or looked at Elizabeth. We're gonna look at other couple of districts like Perth Amboy. But we really do with our team have a solid idea of what it is that we need to and want to do.
Okay.
We virtually visited Elizabeth, Perth Amboy, Union City, Passaic, and Bridgeton. We physically then went to Elizabeth, Union City, and Perth Amboy. Okay, this has been really 5 years in the making, because we started out with the Bilingual Academy next door. Then the next year we were supposed to bring the Port of Entry in and then go down. We never got past setting up that Bilingual Academy. So this is kind of the phase 2 of what we did, setting up that Bilingual Academy. The Bilingual Academy is still in effect, but those are more, think of it this way with your bilinguals. Sorry, Ms. Williams. Think of it this way. Bilinguals sit in different buckets. Port of Entry, first time in a United States school system. Tier 1 are students that are scoring usually between a 1 and a 2 on an access, very limited. Tier 2 are your intermediate kids, which are 2 to about 3.5, and your tier 3 are your 3.5 to the 4, and then above a 4 is what you call your sheltered instruction students. So at that building now, you'll be housing more of your tier 2, your intermediates, your advanced, and your sheltered instruction or SIOP students. This will now take those students that are mixed with those kids that really don't have a lot of English and allow us to focus more on language acquisition to get them caught up to the tier 2 and tier 3 students. So what we have is, I know more about bilingual in the last 3 months of my life than I think I know about my husband for 27 years.
Ms. Bergman says the floor. I see you, Ms. Castro, Ms. Bergman. I also have Mrs. Morgan. waiting on the
So
question.
the only other question that I have, and you can, I guess you can send this to us, just what percentage of our students right now are port of entry? And
About 21. About
21 what?
we'll give you the actual, just to make
Oh.
sure we'll double check and we'll send that to you.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
A few questions. So let me go in order, Mrs. Morgan, and then I'll have you, Mrs. Morgan, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. It's been my experience, having been on the board for 6 years, that typically our district does not ensure that these students who are coming to our district actually live in Plainfield, New Jersey. And at one time, there was a program that was put in place to check on the residency of all these students. So how are we confirming that these students actually live in Plainfield, New Jersey?
So we do have a residency officer, Mr. Crawford, who's been working with us now about 2 years. So when these students register, he goes and do a home visit to ensure that they actually live with us. We've been very successful over the last 2 years of identifying students who did not belong here. He was able to get some real high profile cases that was costing district a lot of funds through special services as a result of those visits as well.
Thank you.
Clarify, Mrs. Dr. Mitchell.
Yeah, and we also found out during Mr. Crawford's home visits that there are multiple families living in this same group. Multiple families.
Ms. Young, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Williams, for this presentation. I actually have a question specifically about the students in the Port of Entry program that are the high school age level. So I know that GPA in Plainfield High School is usually a weighted GPA. Does the completion of the Port of Entry program add to that, like as credits?
So if let's just take a 10th grade English class that a Port of Entry student takes, it will be weighted the same as a regular 10th grade English class here. And as you know, as you get into honors and AP, is weighted more heavily. Theirs will be weighted just like a regular high school course here at Plainfield High School, their courses.
Okay, all right, thank you. And I also had another question.
Yes.
So it's such an immense challenge for a student to be transferred to a whole other country, having to learn a new language and a new culture, and just assembling into the new environment. I was actually wondering if there was a way for students who complete the course to achieve a certificate of completion at the end. That could be signed maybe by the superintendent or the board or something of that nature.
So just so I make sure we're on the same page, I come into the Port of Entry program, I finish my year, and I go ahead and transition to the high school. You talking about those students? Or
Yes.
the students that finish out their whole career at Port of Entry because they were overaged?
I'm talking about all students who complete the program successfully.
Yes, that's something we can do. That's easy. Make it a big deal. Definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Like I said, Mr. Williams, we will proceed with caution on that. We don't want students to take a certificate and, think it's a diploma. So it will probably be given simultaneously with a diploma.
Okay.
So just for clarity purposes, so board members know what's going on, again, following Robert Rules of Orders, I give speaking privileges to those who haven't had an opportunity to speak on the subject. Ms. Anderson, person, you have the floor, and I see you, Ms. Castro.
Thank you. I have quite a few questions, but I'll try to break up my thoughts. You were describing the students that would be entering this. Do you have a specific breakdown as to what countries they're coming from?
Not right here tonight, but we can get that because when they register, they have to give us that information.
Okay, so at this point, just to get a better handle from a district perspective, you don't have a way to understand where the surge of students are coming from until they walk through the front door?
That is correct, because when they're en route to come to the country, we don't know where they're gonna come. We don't know, because they can go, like, again, we're not the only ones having this issue. So no, we can't.
And would you say that the majority of the students that are enrolling, they're undocumented?
I couldn't tell you that, not here tonight, but I can get that to you.
Okay.
More than likely, I would think so.
All right, because that just speaks to some other, services or things that we would have to have in place. I want to get a handle as a board member in terms of, do we really know who this population of students that are coming in? You're setting up a system, but if it's not clear who's walking through the front door, you're not really sure how many kids are going to be in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade until they get here.
No. Then maybe I misunderstood the question.
Okay.
I thought you meant before they get to the district. As far as us and our planning and actually registering, transferring those students to our school, of course we know. We know what grades they are. We just gave you a breakdown of which school they were in, but we can go further and say how many in 6th grade, how many in 7th, as well as which countries they're coming from, because again, they give us that information when they register.
Yeah, that would be very helpful to have that information. You also mentioned the fact that you would start to teach the kids in their native language.
Yes.
'Cause I know initially when I started on the board, the philosophy was that kids coming from other countries would be taught Spanish first, which didn't really sound right to me, but teaching them their native language first makes sense.
Right.
And then you made a statement with this program, which I just want to clarify. You said that they would be in this program for a year.
Yes.
And in terms of developing English acquisition.
Right.
So what's different about this particular program in terms of the speed in which they develop English acquisition that's different from what students are experiencing now? Because on the just plain devil's advocate, there's parents who feel, Spanish-speaking parents feel that their child is not learning English fast enough, that they're being, pushed into learning Spanish first and then English, and then it was like a 90-10 model, and in terms of 90% Spanish being taught, 10% English. So I'm just trying to understand between this program and what we're doing in district now.
So if we're trying to teach them content, they're going to learn it quicker in their own language.
I agree.
At the same time, we're also giving them the support, the ESL support, to help them acquire the English language. So they're doing both at the same time. The difference between that and let's say what's happening over here at the Bilingual Academy, Dr. Mitchell explained to you, those students are mixed in with students who may have been here 2, 3, 4 years already. They're not separated and in a class by themselves over here at the Bilingual Academy. Here, we can just focus on those students who got here, help them acclimate themselves to go to school on a day-to-day basis, teach them content in their language, as well as give them the support to help them learn the English language as quickly as possible.
So in terms of a model, is that similar to like a 90-10 model, even if you're just dealing with this particular population of students?
The model that you're speaking to, and if I'm correct, the 90-10, we're only doing kindergarten and 1st grade right now. Just kindergarten?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
60-40.
Okay.
So 60% English, Spanish. So that's about 3 subjects that they'll learn in their native language of Spanish, and then 2 subjects a day where they learn in English. But it's totally different from the structure that's in our programs outside of the Port of Entry program we're discussing today.
Okay. And just piggybacking on what Ms. Pyle, Ms. Castro was asking, and even Ms. Workman, in terms of the Bilingual Academy that's here, the Twilight Program, and what you're trying to introduce to us right now is I'm just trying to get a big picture. I think Ms. Gordon, Dr. Gordon tried to elaborate a little bit with it, because I'm still a little confused in terms of the different populations of students. Like, okay, so Bilingual Academy, who's in that?
So the Bilingual Academy, what she was trying to explain to you, they take an access test every year, our English language learning, our ELs. That test will score them and they'll fall somewhere between a 1 and a 4.
And
the higher the score, the more they can do in English.
And so the English language learners that are in the Bilingual Academy,
Yes.
if I'm understanding you correctly,
Yes.
are students that are coming from outside the country and that,
Not necessarily.
okay, so can you,
So that's what we're trying. So that Bilingual Academy, we really should separate from what we're doing, because that bilingual, unfortunately, right now, those port of entry students are in those classes and not being serviced. Is not giving them the best opportunity to be successful.
okay, so,
I think I got the other piece of this. Over there, you have students that are excelling at different levels. Those who have been here 0 years and those who have been here up to 4 and 5 years are in that academy.
so I guess what's not clear for me, and I guess this can be a follow-up, is I'm trying to understand the challenges, and then when you're suggesting this additional school, what the ultimate purpose is going to be for this building, for that building, the Bilingual Academy, the Twilight Program. Who are we servicing?
Okay.
And how are these going to work together, if they're working separately, but just the big picture in terms of how we're going to be servicing this particular population of students.
So those students at the Bilingual Academy are there from 1 or more years they've been in the country. That's who will be there. Those students who just get to the country will be in our port of entry program over at Berkman. The Twilight Program, which happens after school, is for anyone who's eligible to graduate in June of 2022, but need to make up extra classes.
And so you're saying in this program, a student that just walked into the country would only be in that building for 1 year?
Yes, that's the plan. But if that student is 18 or 19 years old and close to that age to aging out, then they'll probably finish in that program, because we have to get them out in 2 years. They only can be in school till they're 21.
So, and I'll let someone else ask their question. How does it work with a port of entry student that comes in and that person is 16, but in terms of educational, in terms of testing, they test lower? So they would be in this building
The port of entry program,
for 1 year.
more than likely.
But yeah, so my point is they wouldn't be able to be caught up that quickly, correct? I'm just,
Well,
you know,
I
there are
mean,
certain,
it depends on how motivated the student is, to be honest with you.
okay, so what I'm trying to understand, and this may not be a conversation from now, but what I'm
Right.
trying to get to is if someone is walking in from another country, and you had said it before,
Right.
depending on their educational level in their country, they
Right.
may or may not be on par.
Right.
So if they show up and they're 16, but they're testing like they're, you know, I'm just throwing out a number, in the 4th grade,
Right.
all right, so then how are you addressing that particular scenario with the student? Because 1 year they would not be caught up.
So that is a much longer conversation, but I'm into being transparent and honest. We have students that are in that situation now
I
that
understand
teachers
that.
deal with every day. So that teacher's responsible for structuring their lesson to provide support to their students where they can learn the content at their level.
But
So we deal with that now. Unfortunately, if you look at the data, probably 40 to 50% of our students are not reading on grade level. So they already deal with that. So it would be nothing new for that teacher that's over there in the port of entry program, because those teachers do that now.
I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Ms. Castro, you have the floor.
So the SLIFE program,
I'm saying who?
How long has the SLIFE program been around?
The SLIFE students are students that just got here. Usually don't have any.
I understand.
Okay.
I'm saying, like, the SLIFE program is not just a New Jersey thing, I believe.
No, that's a national thing. Matter of fact, I gave you the national definition on what it is.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to like understand the success rate for the SLIFE program.
Oh, I couldn't tell you the success rate right now.
Were you able to look at Elizabeth, who's had the program, or any other school districts to see how successful it's been? So we don't know if it's been successful in others. Okay, so SLIFE has been successful in Elizabeth, okay. Thank you.
I just want to discuss, I think, just for even for clarity purpose, I think SLIFE is a designation. So you'll find that it's programs differ in different places, but the designation is that you'll find across the board. And interesting enough, I was in a meeting about 3 weeks ago. I'm sorry, I think it was last week, in which they were talking about the number of undocumented, unaccompanied children who are coming across the border. I think they told me somewhere around 100,000, 6,000 into New Jersey. And the cities that they said specifically during that presentation were Newark, Elizabeth, Plainfield, and wrote the other one down. Newark, Elizabeth, Plainfield, and New Brunswick. So I definitely believe that what we're doing as a district to try to address this need is definitely something of importance. And I hope that's something that again, we continue to consider. But absolutely, I think SLIFE is a very interesting population in that they are generally, in my occasion, they've been students who have not had an education for some long period of time, as opposed to students who might be bilingual coming from another country in which they've had some type of formal education. I think that's the largest difference I've seen that challenge. Ms. Powell, you have the floor.
Yes. First question, is this on the agenda to be voted on?
No.
It's not. And this is obviously a very important item that should be discussed at a meeting by itself, because you're about to start basically another school here in the district, and it costs money. It's going to cost money. And then you're talking about you have to hire more teachers when you don't even have more money yet. So, and I mean, I think this is a very healthy discussion that's going on. And every time I hear someone else, then I have the same questions that everyone else has. And one thing, the reason I believe that Plainfield, Elizabeth, and so forth is because, number one, they're sanctuary cities. During the Trump years, they were scared. So they came to these parts of New Jersey. Another thing is, when they came to these parts of New Jersey, they may live in North Plainfield, because a lot of our students lived in North Plainfield because it's right next to us, and they were enrolling in our school district. And I know of some of those families, and they were undocumented. The other thing is, when they come, if they're 18 years old, and let's say they're coming from, I don't know, very third world type of country, they may only know farming. They may not know not even their alphabet. So if you bring a 16-year-old here that doesn't even know the alphabet in their own country, you can't expect them to learn their ABCs or spell or color, whatever the case may be, between in their language and in our language in 1 year. I don't care how motivated you are. That is like...
No one said they will learn everything in 1 year. We said we want to give them support for a full year before putting this young man or young woman into our program. The other thing was, the question I was given wasn't if they even know letters or things of that nature. The bottom line is every student has to be evaluated and see where they are, and then we'll make a decision on what's the best thing for that student, period. We don't want to set any student up to be unsuccessful. So if we make a decision for that 16-year-old that is best that they stay the full 4 years or 3 years or whatever it is at the program, then that's something we can do. So it's our program. We have to do what's in the best interest of the student. Here, we can't do 1,800 individualized, programs for students. That's why you need one of the things that we talked about 2 years ago, what our team wanted to do is provide options. Like we need options for all students. So we're not gonna have 1,800 options, but most certainly we can have the different options to deal with significant pieces of our population, whether it is what we're talking about now, our SLIFE students, or students who are excelling at high levels, King Scholars Program, students who excel in the visual performing arts, PAS, and some other things that we want to do. Our students in AVID, who is designed to take those students who may not be thinking about college, but have the potential. So now we've expanded that is at all the middle schools, and it started Cedar Brook where I was, and I believe the high school. Now we've expanded it so all Maxon, Hubbard, Cedar Brook, and the high school has it, and it has had some success already here at the high school and pushing students toward AP courses and honors courses. So what our plan is as we move forward and as we build our strategic plan is to continue to provide these options, because we don't have any space for it right now. We want our babies back from the charter schools. I'm sorry, because I think we have a lot to offer. And I think we need to offer, as a resident of Plainfield, I think we need to have options for every family. So this is just our latest option.
And a few more here. The thing about the house, I got a couple more. The households, when you go in and you see a lot of people in the household, who are we to say that you can't live in a 2-bedroom house with 10 people? That is not our job as a school district. Agreed. So if they are to be all undocumented living in that house, but if they're coming to, if that's their address, then they have the right to come to the school.
Absolutely.
So now we can be overpopulated. The other thing is, and I will say that we're pretty successful, because when you go to our graduations, our, the valedictorians and the salutatorians are Hispanic or Latin descent.
Yes.
Some of them were that beautiful speech. I believe he was undocumented, or that great speech that he told.
Absolutely.
The other one couldn't even tell his speech because he became emotional.
Right.
So it is successful as far as what we have now.
Absolutely.
It's not like it's unsuccessful.
Right.
And the other thing is, did we ever look into Edison and Woodbridge, because they have an influx of Farsi? It's not just Spanish, or the Latin language. They also have an influx of the Indian students who speak Farsi. What are they doing?
Yeah.
But they only teach in Farsi. I mean, they whatever. Look at the Farsi. Most of them speak Farsi, if I believe. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, I thought you just did, but go ahead. But go ahead.
Can't hear you.
I have like one really quick question. I
Right.
think it'd be useful for us as a board. Is it possible to tease out the data for our homegrown students and our students who are coming to us midway through their
Yes.
education? And I think the reason why I say that is because I think then it also does a good job of showing the value of Plainfield's education when you have been here since kindergarten. To take nothing away from the students who are coming, but I think that data is being mixed in together and it's not truly reflective of what we're able to do when we have a student from K to 12. Mr. Whitey, did you, let me just double check, make sure people online, did anybody have a question? I know I got him over here. Yeah. Mr. Wyatt.
Okay, really quick, I just pulled up demographics, but this was just specifically Plainfield High School. So in 2019, we were 76% Hispanic. Do we know the number, the demographics for the total, the district-wide? About the same?
Yeah, it's about the same. It's about 77%.
Okay, so in addition, Latino descent, okay. So in addition to this, just thinking about the general ed students as well, did we ever look at making Plainfield School District bilingual? Because now if you look at forecasting and predicting, you know, the trends of the future, you go get a job now and the application says must be bilingual. So did we start looking, can we take a look at that as well?
That's kind of small. So as you know, we have the Seal of Biliteracy program where students earn that every year. You know, I don't want to get into some of the things that we want to do as we move forward. I'll tell you personally, professionally at Stillman, when I was there, one of the things that I thought the district should do is have a K-5 magnet school where it focuses on being multilingual. So by the time you finish 5th grade, you're going to be able to operate in 2 or more languages. But that's long range. But, you know, as Madam Board Member said earlier, until we have a strategic plan, you know, we don't want to put the cart before the horse. But that's what happens sometimes because we don't have one. So we're not going to stand around and just let the thing fester. If we see an issue, we're going to attack it. There are certain things that we can see based on data coming down the road that we can address, but we would love to do that during the strategic planning process. So that way the board is no surprise. You know, year 4, we doing this, and this. You know, year 2, we're going to do this, and this. And that's what you can hold us accountable for. Right now, the only thing you can hold us accountable for is what we bring before you. But if you have a strategic plan, 3, 5 years or whatever it is, that's our report card. That's our evaluation. That's what you can hold us to.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Workman.
So to piggyback on what Mr. White said, have you ever thought of maybe pairing kids together? It's almost like peer to peer, whereby if I speak English and this person speaks Spanish, kind of like learn maybe the language that way, but you also now, you're making a new friend.
Right.
And you're learning about other people's culture and the things that, you know, they like, they do.
So that happens in our bilingual classes now because, again, because we don't have port of entry, we have kids at varying different levels. So when they're in a subject and they're learning in English, those students who are further up that have already acquired the language, they can support those students in that language. And as we know, peers, they learn quicker from peers than they even from us.
We need to do a better job telling the stories, like the success stories of the school district, and not just have people tell our stories for us, because the only
Agreed.
things that they talk about are the negative things. So that's one. And then the other thing is, I think we need additional resources for supportive entry school, like social workers, because that's probably going to be, you can't have one social worker.
Agreed.
Okay.
So when we bring them up here, we know we got you. You got our back.
So just I see Mr. Campbell, just for clarity purpose, I think Ms. Campbell, Powell, I think raised a good issue. This, you're just presenting to us as a presentation.
Absolutely.
When the plan is prepared, you put it in the board agenda for us to vote on.
Right. So once we have the go, you know, once the superintendent is ready, we wanted to bring this to you tonight, give you an idea. This is not the final plan, and we will keep you updated throughout the process so you know where we are and what we're doing. But the school will be properly staffed, and we'll give it whatever resources we need. And we have a lot of resources currently that can help support those students in that program as well. We don't want to put that program on an island by itself. It'll still be connected to the district. It's part of Plainfield High School. It's not a school. It's just a program that's overseen by Mr. Stansberry, but whoever that site-based administrator is, they have the bulk of the responsibilities along with us in the bilingual department at the district level.
Campbell, I'm sorry.
Yes, I just have a couple of quick questions. One is how many kids do you presently have in your Twilight program?
There are no kids in the Twilight programs right now. We won't know that till the end of the first marking period, when we can assess those seniors that might need to recover additional credits to graduate on June 2022.
I thought we were going to have one by opening the school.
No.
And my second question
Yeah,
is,
I'm sorry, Mr. Campbell, hear you.
my second question is, let's say here at the high school, and it has to do with the port of entry students. Let's say a kid from his country that came from, he went to the 5th grade. He's 15 years old. He shows up here. Where do you place that kid?
He'll be in
15 years old. He had fifth grade education in his country.
He'll be in the port of entry program.
Do we have that? What do we do with them now?
Right now, they're over in the Bilingual Academy, probably in the 9th or 10th grade, more than likely, depending on bilingual department and how that kid assessed. They're right over there in the other building, which is what the concern is.
And just a comment, we talked about the lack of space. Maybe we should consider making that new school, the Booker School, K through 8, because we tend to lose a lot of our kids in the 6th grade. So there seems to be a concern with our parents not wanting to send the kids to our middle school, our present middle school. So with a nice new school, if we booted that up to K through 8 rather than a K through 5, I think that's the present. And I don't know if we ever had a discussion about whether we were going to make that a K through 5 or a K through 8. And last, I think there needs to be, this has to do with the lack of space in our growing student population. And we presently have 2 members of the board that are also planning board members, if I remember correctly. And we are scheduled to, in our development of the city, maybe increase the apartments by 4,000 or 5,000. So at some point, I think we need to do an impact study and see how many kids we're going to bring into the city through the development, and so we can plan accordingly.
Thank you. I'm gonna see Ms. Anderson person, I'm gonna give you the floor, but try to wrap up. We have still extensive part of our agenda to get through, obviously to hear from the comments of the public. Ms. Anderson person, you have the floor.
No problem. I'll just make this brief. If you can come back to us also, I wanted to see what the goals are that you're going to be setting for this program, for this building. You know, what the expectations are in, within its first year. What are you expecting? You know, I know you want the children to learn English acquisition. You want that to be done, but I just want to know from your district perspective, what goals have you set for yourselves?
No problem.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
You're welcome. I just
Chair.
also want to definitely thank Mr. Ronson, Dr. Gordon, and Dr. Filipatos, who assisted with putting this presentation together and doing this work. So thank you.
Through the chair, I'd like to say something to Mr. Campbell. If we have those 4,000 students, hopefully they don't go to the charter schools.
That's why we have to make
Guys.
for to accommodate. We have 4,000 students, one per apartment. We average maybe 400 kids per, so that's maybe looking at 3 or 4 more new schools to accommodate that. But I think that's all we need to start planning for that increase.
Thank you. Are we gonna take a look at, move towards the, work that we have in our agenda for work and study? I'd like to remove the